How does a man who fights like this become a UFC champion? Doubted and mocked in his early tenure, Dricus du Plessis was once MMA's biggest laughingstock.
I didn't give him a fucking chance against Robert Whittaker.
Frankly, I don't know what he's good at.
But behind the unorthodoxy was a lethal weapon, not just physically resolute, but mentally too.
Every childhood memory you have is gonna come back when I'm in there with you.
This is how Dricus du Plessis flipped the script and became a middleweight king.
He's like the best shit fighter in the world.
It looks amateur, but it's like a high level. It's hard to explain.
He's done it for sure.
Just getting into the UFC roster is a task most aspiring fighters find too challenging. So when that opportunity does arrive, however unready one may be, the jump into the unknown must be taken. It is there in those skirmishes that the weak falter and crumble, the strong survive. And in the tumultuous COVID period of 2020, Dricus du Plessis was determined to be the latter.
Here is Dricus Steel Nugs du Plessis. Du Plessis looks like he's about to open his presents on Christmas morning.
And I'm going out there to finish that fight in spectacular fashion like I always do.
The difference with du Plessis is he was signed to another organization.
I said it before, if you don't have a mission to be the greatest of all time, you shouldn't be here. You're going to get hurt. I want to be the greatest to ever do this sport.
With his arrival came a different weight of expectations, a heavier burden on his shoulders. Hailing from South Africa meant it was his sole duty to blaze the path forward. A country not known for its rich MMA heritage, he aimed to be the first of many kings and usher in a new fighting generation.
When it comes to anything where South Africa is represented, it's something that I take very seriously. It's something that I wear on my shoulder. My people, the heritage, my family.
With that burden came added pressure. But to be truly great in a game as unforgiving as this, one must thrive under it. A duel against the experienced Trevin Giles for a second outing was an ample challenge. And it was there on the prelims of a card graced by the notorious, du Plessis would truly put the world on notice.
Modelo, Giles in the black trunks, Dricus du Plessis is in green.
I got up off the cage and I saw his hands were down. I just called him straight.
Good shot.
On the mat now.
Anybody that might have forgotten my name, let me remind you, it's Dricus du Plessis.
I think he's a guy that knows what he's good at and knows how to get there quick.
Heavy hands from du Plessis moving forward.
One of the reasons du Plessis was such a difficult fight for his last several opponents is they didn't know what they were getting into.
Dricus du Plessis.
Separating yourself from the pack is always a difficult task, and with Dricus' unorthodox style came a double-edged sword most apparent. For although his explosive KO power saw clear fanfare, the manner of each punch's delivery made for reactions of confusion and disbelief. The masses were tuning in, sure, but out of morbid curiosity, dumbfounded that a man this untechnical could grit his way to glory. A fight with former title challenger and superstar Darren Till was to be the true litmus test. The Englishman, by all accounts, represented orthodoxy in fighting terms. A sniper on the feet, striking skills honed through years of discipline. It was conventionality versus a fighting style wholly unique. On the psychological front were two men on different wavelengths. The Englishman was a man out of time, conceding to his decline, whilst du Plessis, a warrior just getting started.
All the respect in the world to Darren Till, but at the end of the day, listen, I did say it and I did mean it. We've seen the best in the world in Darren Till and we've seen the worst of him.
Now these left hands are getting through with some force.
I could see in his face, I could see that he didn't want to be there anymore.
Dricus du Plessis, 4-0 in the UFC and coming to the top 10 next week.
Hardly an aesthetically pleasing performance by any means. Dricus had turned it into a dogfight like every time before. He had prevailed against his toughest challenge to date, but with another victory in the book, the MMA fanbase was still yet to appreciate him. When the masses aren't on your side, no favor curried with the higher-ups. The only way to reach the grand heights of a championship duel is to head once more into the breach in the cage and play the entertainment game outside of it.
How many Alexa Grassos are needed to beat one DDP?
How many can you make?
Like 400.
400 will fucking wreck you. Then we just pile up on you and bite you.
I'll be like, ah.
Personalities can make a career in MMA, and the fighters most notable know this well. In showing off his, Dricus had earned the affection of some fans, but the bottom line remained that he would have to do more in the cage to turn the tide. Veteran Derek Brunson would provide that opportunity, one which Still Knox was ready to take with both fists.
I'm not only a striker, I'm not only a grappler, I'm not only a wrestler. If you're a wrestler, wrestle me and see how it goes. Wherever this fight goes, I'm ready for it.
Big left hand.
He's done them for sure.
Big shot.
The towel just got thrown in.
Strikers, Still Knox duplessis.
There is something to be said about an unbreakable mental resolve in mixed martial arts. Some possess an innate fortitude, sure, but it takes a certain breed to weaponize it when the lights are down. Duplessis against Brunson, and those before him had proved to do so, triumphing even when technically outclassed. It would be a bold claim to say that Dricus was looking past his opponent at 285, considering the manner of his win, but the reality remained that new seeds had been planted, ones that intertwined with the fate of another African-born, Israel the last stylebender, Adesanya. Dricus' feud with the middleweight great was forged not through in-the-cage actions, but those out of it. In donning the flag of his home country and training on its soil, Duplessis had used that pride to bolster his resolve, something he indirectly claimed Adesanya had always neglected. Words misconstrued, perhaps, a beef that had gotten far out of hand with none truly right nor wrong, but the emotions within both men were real and had succeeded in garnering fan attention, which in this game, positive or negative, was only a good thing.
Well, I mean, did those belts ever go to Africa? As far as I know, it came to America and New Zealand. I'm going to take a belt to Africa. I'm the African fighter in the UFC. We breathe the African air. We wake up in Africa every day. We train in Africa, we're African born, we're African raised. That's an African champion, and that's who I'll be.
As a product of colonization, you're trying to tell me who the fuck I am. You can take the boy out of Africa, but you can never take the Africa out of the boy.
It sounded personal. Well, because he took direct shots.
You know, but I started laughing. I was like, well, I mean, if they're going to be pissed off about that, so be it. I don't care.
Entertaining as it was from a spectator view, their feud, at least for now, would have to wait, for they in truth were operating on different lanes. For he was there and he was here. Israel had not just been and done what Dricus was desperate to achieve.
Gotta be very careful.
Israel Adesanya is the undisputed king of the middleweight.
But claimed the throne twice over.
Counter right from Adesanya. Pineda down and out. Adesanya has finally done it.
Despite Dricus' victories, now 5 straight in a middleweight division rife with killers, his still strange style used to get there remained the sole reason for his fan failures. A fraudulent gladiator, a paper warrior, the South African style, feet plodding, mouth agape, was more akin to a local drunk vying for a scrap. Each win seemed to be constantly snatched by the skin of the teeth, and to shift this negative preconception from the eyes of the fans, something would finally need to change.
I've needed a nose operation for quite some time. It came to a stage where there was no breathing through one nostril. There was very limited breathing through the other.
When your one nose is completely blocked and the other nose has got 8% airflow into it, you've got 8% oxygen.
I laughed it off at first, but then I got like a stuffy nose and went to training and it was tiring, man.
Though the 8% efficiency comment was dubious to say the least. At the top level of combat sports, the margins between success and grave failure are ever thinning. Every edge or disadvantage can have serious consequences, and in hindsight, Duplessis' tenure as a man essentially using down tools made his rise all the more impressive. And now, with the light at the end of the tunnel, lay a man reforged, rebirthed. The creation of a new mythical fighter, oxygenated Duplessis, had arrived. Dricus' success was never a surprise to himself, nor his team, but the masses remained waiting for his inevitable decline. They had yet to witness this new empowered version of Dricus, and upon him being paired up with a certain Australian come UFC 290, most, myself unashamedly included, expected him to finally lose. The Reaper, Robert Whittaker's resume as a former champion was nigh unrivaled. Even without the belt to his name, he had cleared each and every one of the division's budding contenders, only failing at the final hurdle. In short, a tall order for the South African-born. But being doubted was nothing new. If anything, it was expected. Bolstered by the nose surgery, free of the affliction that had long suppressed his true potential, Duplessis was ready to show the world who he always was.
I have a goal to be the champion of the world, and Robert Whittaker is the next step in that ladder. But I believe I did everything I possibly could, and I know I'm ready.
UFC middleweight champ Israel Adesanya. He is likely the most interested observer watching Octagon side. Duplessis taking on that man, the credentialed Robert Whittaker.
Duplessis had his nose fixed, and it's a huge factor in this fight. Couldn't breathe out of it at all. Now he got that fixed. Improvements in cardio.
I didn't give him a fucking chance against Robert Whitaker, and boy was I wrong.
He's done the back. There goes that rolling shoulder. Oh my goodness. Big strike raining down. Whitaker covers up. Do you believe it? Dreykus Du Plessis calls his shot.
Told you I manifested this. I manifested this.
But Dreykus Du Plessis.
One could never rely on solely luck nor power to beat a man as versatile as Whitaker. In cheating death, slaying the Reaper amidst enemy territory, Dreykus had finally gotten the respect long deserved. That fighting style, once mocked, now revered. Taking the #1 contender spot would usually be enough to ensure a title shot, but his now sprouted seeds of attrition with the last style bender had cemented it.
This is my African brother right here. Let's go. What's up? Let's go. Yeah.
I'm African, but I ain't no brother of yours.
Do a 26andMe DNA test. It'll tell you where you're from. I will show you where you're from.
The UFC loves a tall tale spun, a narrative fit for Shakespeare just as much the octagon. And thus, their duel would see the green light. Adesanya versus Du Plessis on the grand stage. But the road to MMA summit is never simple, and fate, or perhaps destiny, would split them apart once more.
If you had a dream in life, but your foot hurt, are you gonna walk over there and are you gonna get your dream or not?
I had a fracture in my foot and a tear in a ligament. Injured for a whole camp and not being able to train properly for the biggest fight of your life. I don't think that's a smart move, and that's why we didn't take that fight.
Time moves fast for most, even quicker for the gladiators we tune in to see, and it is far too often we see the fights most anticipated slip out of the fingers when we want them most. As Du Plessis recovered, another man had risen to not just take his place, but that of the champions also. The loose cannon, a man who just like Dreykus was doubted by most, Sean Strickland, had arrived.
Israel Adesanya, the -675 betting favorite at close. Huge right hand for Sean Strickland! Adesanya back to his feet!
And now Strickland's talking to him.
And in the 5th round, he's not even breathing heavy. Amazing.
Sean Strickland has produced one of the biggest upsets in UFC championship history!
And now, Sean Strickland!
In shocking the world, Strickland had seized the moment, Dreykus' time, and lived out the path he was meant to follow. As Du Plessis emerged from recovery, the obstacle had changed, but the end goal was the same as it always had been. The title of middleweight champion, which Dreykus was ready to take from whoever lay in front of him. For within the champion, he saw a weakness, a shell, a front of brash bravado that shielded inside a boy fragile, afraid. A scorched earth approach, Dreykus would play the mental game to coax out the real Sean and provide an advantage, however small, when they would eventually duel.
Bro, why are you so angry? Bro, you think your dad beat the shit out of you? Your dad doesn't have shit on me. Every childhood memory you have is gonna come back. Every single one. The one where you lie in bed at night where your dad comes in and he beats the shit out of you.
I will take your fucking soul. You understand me, you fucking pussy?
Whenever Dreykus goes on there and like he jokes about that shit. Like, dude, you have no idea.
Yeah, you fucking laugh, you fucking
Yeah, oh, I got a nerve. I see I hit a nerve there.
Yeah, you fucking did hit a nerve, you fucking bitch. Leave me after, you fucking bitch.
So what kind of an asshole sits Strickland next to Du Plessis? This asshole.
Oh, and
wow.
Oh,
my goodness.
Oh, wow.
I don't know what humans you can sit Strickland next to, but definitely not Du Plessis.
In this game, there are two types of warriors who make it to glory. The heroes and the villains. Dreykus, until now, had long lent towards the former. His feud with Adesanya was never started with ill intent, but against Strickland, he would play the heel unashamedly. It had time gone by, an era before the notorious Conor McGregor shook up the scene and the bad guy spat verbal venom. Such actions would be scolded and punished.
But there's no place in this sport or this business for stuff like that.
Some men had once suffered that fate, but in this new time, where the lines of morality had long blurred, Dreykus and his adversaries' actions had instead elevated their initial duel.
I think it's time for us to accept this, that not all shapes and forms of champions and MMA fighters have to look the same.
I finally realized that because you do things different, you aren't doing things wrong.
What a matchup it is here in Toronto for the undisputed UFC Middleweight Championship. A 6-0 UFC start has afforded Dreykus Du Plessis the opportunity to challenge for the world title. Sean Strickland is the hunted. Canadians seemingly love Strickland as much as the Aussies.
Blitzes are starting to add up now. He's finally able to blitz forward a little bit on the angle.
Oh!
could be that the blood is leaking down because that cut seems to be in a very bad place.
Physical shot.
Keep the face up. How's a big overhand?
Strickland really leaking now.
They both want to trade at the end.
Well, the forecast was for a war, and that is what they got. A standing ovation in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, as Sean Strickland and Dricus du Plessis go the full 25 minutes to decide the UFC middleweight championship.
Oh my God, he's won!
Give it up for the new middleweight champion of the world, Dricus du Plessis.
A rise so unorthodox. Dricus' tale, like so many others, once doubted, read like one from the wrong timeline, with the wrong ending written. And yet, here he lay, 10.5 pounds of gold around his waist, and those who once jeered, now chanting his name, fighting for South Africa, for all of Africa. There would be those who claim it was a victory nod not deserved, that the champion, now former, should have held his mantle, but the victory books were set in stone. He may have had to dig into his dark side to find success, but the belt and its various boons were now his. The fog of war had now cleared, and a duel with Adesanya lay on the horizon. The roles had reversed, with the challenger the king and vice versa. And with that came a paradigm shift. No longer was Dricus doubted, he was well and truly feared. But the boons of a champion are not always channeled well, for those of lesser mental fortitude crumble under the weight of expectations or lack of motivation. Dricus, sporting the black and gold, aimed to quell any doubters' concerns. And whether it was donning a mask or true sincerity, he would play the villain once more at UFC 305.
Are you taking the servants with you when you're going back?
My father and myself had to wake up at 4 a.m. and clean the banks while my mom studies to be a nurse. You don't know my story. Man, don't speak of my story if you don't know my story.
I don't care.
I will show you who you are. So right now,
I can't wait.
Bye unless you see. He touched the subject there because I do this for my family. I do this for the people I love, and I'll fight for you forever. I swear to God. Look, I'm a human being. I am a man. I can cry and whoop your ass at the same time.
Du Plessis and now drags Adesanya down.
Oh, he's got the choke.
Oh, he gets it done. Still, South Africa, Dricus du Plessis remains the man at 185.
A duel that was the culmination of everything. The long-anticipated conclusion to a multi-year-long rivalry brewed through petty words spat. And as the dust settled, du Plessis lay as the champion still, cementing not just his style's legitimacy, but his position as one of the UFC's finest ever warriors and a pioneer of South African mixed martial arts.